What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Netflix's speed run of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Season 1, Episode 7, The North. Yeah, like I said, speed run. We're just flying through all these character arcs in Season 1, some of which we don't see until the very end of the show, but we're already here because apparently it's not just enough to speed run Season 1 in 8 episodes. We have to speed run the whole show in 8 episodes. Blowing my mind with how stupid some of these decisions are, but we'll start off with, in my opinion, the worst change, because some of the changes were not bad. They just didn't really affect anything. They changed the story, but it just sort of made it different. It didn't really make it better or worse. The one that definitely has changed it for the worst, in my opinion, is Azula, and I talked about this a little bit already. We're already seeing her failing, I guess. We're already seeing her struggling. We're already seeing her dealing with not getting the approval of her father and how much it affects her. That's some Season 3 shit. That is some Season 3 shit right there. Because that's whenever we finally see she is flawed. She's not this perfect evil villain that we've seen up until that point. She has her flaws. She has her weaknesses that we hadn't seen before. We're already seeing that here. She's not even, it doesn't feel like she's the same character, even. It seems like they're trying to get us to sympathize with her. I don't want to. I want to hate her because she's an evil villain. That's what made her fun. That's what made her enjoyable as a villain. Here, she seems like a whiny little brat who just wants her father's attention. How is that more interesting? It's not. I'll go ahead and just tell you, it's not more interesting than the Azula we had before. That Azula, she loved to be evil. You could tell she felt like she was just so confident in herself. It didn't matter what anybody else thought. It wasn't until Season 3, like I said, that we saw her weaknesses. She wants to basically get the approval of her father just as much as Zuko does. It's just up until that point, she had nothing but approval from him. It's when she starts to realize maybe he doesn't approve of her actions. That's when she does start to slip a lot. Obviously, some of it was also she had her friends turn on her because she didn't think anybody would be not scared enough of her to turn on her. But that was kind of the first step into her descent. The final straw, the one that really broke the camel's back for her case, is the fact that Ozai basically was like, "You're not coming with me," because he found out about her betrayal. He found out that she lied to him, and he turned on her. And that's when she truly lost it. We're already seeing that here. This whole thing where she's being tested and Ozai is sitting there, "You're not good enough," and all this. I know what he's doing. He's trying to push her. He's trying to push her out and stop trying to win his affection and all of that and actually go do something for herself. I get what he's doing, but for her, it makes her weaker. It makes her less interesting of a character to see her already struggling in Season 1 with, "Oh, I'm just not good enough for my dad. I want to show him how good I am. I want to show him that I am the one." How do you think that's more interesting than the Azula we had before? She just seems so childish and petty, almost as much as Zuko is in this first season, which for Zuko, it makes sense because he is a kid who's just seeking the attention of his father. It's not until he grows out of that he finally becomes a more well-rounded character. For Azula, she's on the same playing field as Zuko right now. How is that interesting? So definitely the worst change in this episode. The others, we'll see. One in particular is, of course, with Katara. They did, in fact, make it to where, no, the Northern Water Tribe, they don't train women. Women don't fight. They're not fighters. They're not strong enough. So they actually did have that storyline, which I'm surprised because, guys, can you believe it? They actually had a sexist character on this show. I don't know. Like I said, the fact that they changed Sokka's story because I guess they didn't want to offend anybody, but then they still have this. Like, why did you change Sokka's story then? I truly don't understand that. But yeah, I think, this one, it's still the same. By the end of it, he still isn't training Katara. It doesn't seem like he's acknowledged her, really. Everybody else has, but he just sort of walks away. And that's a change that I don't know what they're going to do with it. Because obviously in the original show, it was he sees she's got the necklace from Gran, and it's his first love and all of that. And so there's that connection, and he sort of realizes that he was very hard-headed, and that's something that she told him all those years ago. And so it kind of wakes him up a little bit because of that connection. Here, she kind of shows him up a little bit. She has those moments. They have the moments from the show, the ones where she whips him in the back of the head. He pulls out the water looking intimidating. She throws the one ice disc and he goes flying by and he sees his reflection like, whoa, she nearly got me with that. They have all of those moments from the show to be like, hey guys, we watched the show, remember? Which again, completely frustrates me whenever you change things that make characters worse. It's like, so you watch the show clearly because you're pulling scenes straight from the show, but you're also making changes that making this show a lot worse than the original. They have all of those moments. By the end of it, he still beats her like he does in the original, but there's no acknowledgement from him. He just starts to walk away and then everybody else acknowledges Katara. So what I'm worried is going to happen is he'll acknowledge her to the point of, you can fight now, and whenever we take on the Fire Nation, you can fight them. But what I'm worried is they're going to kind of go too far in the opposite direction, and Paku's going to come to her after the fight and be like, you don't need my help. You don't need my training. You're already good enough on your own. Which I'm going to have to call bullshit on because, like I said before, everybody needs a trainer. Everybody needs to be taught. They can't just pick up all this stuff on their own. Most people cannot. The Avatar is one that you could argue does because he is that good. Katara, she needs training. She needs to be helped. And once she gets there, then yeah, she gets really, really good. She becomes easily one of the best waterbenders in history. But she had to start from somewhere. And to say, oh, she just did all that on her own, that makes it less interesting. Because now, as people have used many times before, it's a very much Mary Sue type of story where, oh, she's just that good, guys. You realize how much less interesting that makes your characters, right? Right? Please tell me you know. Please tell me you've at least seen some of the dialogue online talking about how these characters that are just that good because, oh, well, they're just amazing. Those characters are not as interesting because they didn't have to work at it. They didn't have to really grow and learn from something. It's just, nope, Katara's just that good. She naturally picked it up all on her own. She naturally learned all this stuff, and she naturally became one of the best waterbenders without any help from anybody else. How is that relatable to anybody watching? So I'm very worried that that's what they're going to do. I hope that's not the case. I hope it's just they get her to fight and then maybe we cut ahead and she's trained under Paku for a little bit, as has Aang, hopefully. Because going to Aang, yeah, they've once again started whipping out stories from season 2, season 3. The idea that he's got to be working alone as the Avatar, that's end of season 2. He learns that from the monk, and then he decides, no, I have to go save my friends, and then he realizes he has to let go of that. He doesn't do all of that until the end of next season, and we're already here at the end of season 1. And then also they're talking about, well, Aang, how are you gonna take this fight to the Fire Nation? Are you gonna go at him front, or are you gonna come at him from the side? Maybe a little bit of a sneak attack. He's like, well, I'm more so defensive. Like, that's what airbending is. Oh, well, I guess we can't rely on the Avatar if he's just not going to go on the attack. So we're already dealing with the idea that Aang is not really an attack-minded person, which of course plays into how is he going to kill the Fire Lord in season 3. So we're already even getting into that a little bit, the beginnings of that. I'm just like, did they really just go, hey, we want to have Aang be very duty-driven with the Avatar? To which somebody popped up and said, that's the whole point of season 1, so what's his character arc going to be? We'll just throw in some of the character arcs from the future seasons. It's fine. We'll fill up the time with that. Why are you speedrunning his story? Why can't you give him a chance to grow as a character instead of just jumping from here to, all right, we're already in the deep end, guys. Let's get in there. I'm so confused. I don't understand why they think this is more interesting or why they think this is better or as good. It's not. It's less interesting for me. So I'm frustrated with that. Also, Aang still hasn't done any waterbending. Paku doesn't even offer to teach him waterbending. So I'm sitting here going, when is he going to learn to waterbend? He hasn't touched it at all this season. At least by this point, he and Katara had kind of worked together a little bit. They kind of learned a little bit from the water scroll that she had. So he had the basics of it. Paku was his teacher, but Paku's very serious. So he and Aang didn't really mesh. And that's why he didn't learn everything he needed. He learned the basics of it. He learned to be pretty strong with it. But Katara knows Aang. She knows how to teach him. And that's why she finished his training with waterbending later on. All of that made sense. Here, he's not touched it. Paku hasn't offered to train him at all. They're already jumping into this battle against the Fire Nation. So when is he going to learn waterbending? Are they literally going to have Katara teach him from scratch? Because if so, once again, that doesn't work. Because Katara, she's not a master. She's not a teacher. So how is she going to teach him the basics? How is she going to get him to a point where he can start to learn the more advanced stuff. Because again, that's where you have somebody like Paku, who is a master, who has been teaching people how to fight for a while. He can get Aang to a certain point, but again, once you get to the advanced stuff, that's where you need somebody who knows Aang more, that can teach him that stuff in a way he can learn it. That's where Katara steps in. Here, Katara is starting from the beginning, at least based on what I'm seeing. If she's going to do that, now all of a sudden you're dealing with, well, she's never taught people the basics before. She's never taught people, she's never had that teaching training of how to help people learn from the ground up. I feel like that's going to be, it should be too tall of an ask for, but that's kind of what it seems like they're going to do with it. So I don't know, a lot of this just doesn't make sense, and it comes down to, once again, they are speed running this show. They're having so many things that they're just quickly blazing through, and I don't know why. I understand speed running season 1 because you only have 8 episodes. Why are you speed running the whole show? Why are you dealing with all this stuff that doesn't really come into play until much later? And then also skipping over some stuff that is going to now cause issues going forward with some of our characters. So, I don't know. Another little change that wasn't as bad, but it did frustrate me a little bit, is the change with Zuko. We see that apparently Zhao set up this whole thing where he's tricked Zuko to run away so he can blow up the ship. For me, that change doesn't really feel right, because Zhao should know that Iroh's onto him. Like, yes, I know Iroh had this whole thing about, oh, it's the Fire Lords, he did this, which then, of course, doesn't make sense because Zhao is now working for the Fire Lord, so, of course, that still should make him think that Iroh suspects him and is plotting something. So, when in the original show, when it was the pirates that he blamed and Iroh blamed, that kind of made sense because there was an enemy that would try to take out Zuko. And so, Iroh tricking Zhao into basically believing that he's trying to help him, I feel like that was more believable for Zhao, because what other options were there? Here, there's no reason Zhao should think that Iroh is working with him. He should absolutely know that Iroh is onto him, and even if he does believe Iroh's story about it's the Fire Lord's fault, I mean, that's still, you heard him say that, and yet you still think that he's working with you, even though you're working with the Fire Lord. Like, there's such a weird disconnect there that I feel like that change doesn't fit here. So it's one of those, obviously they didn't have time for the pirates, but you still could have thrown in another enemy, maybe make June possibly antagonistical with Zuko and Iroh in a known way, to where Iroh could blame her and Zhao could say, okay, you know what, I could buy that story. How it's set up now, I'm not buying it. I don't think Zhao would buy it, and it just feels like, once again, you've written yourself into a corner with how you set up the story, and now you're stuck. The final change, which is probably the least offensive to me, it makes the story different, is Sokka and Yue. Basically, they've turned this into much more of a kind of romantic Hallmark movie type of thing, where I personally preferred the original because it felt a lot more childlike. Her being this princess, she's betrothed, she is from this other world, and then she meets Sokka. It's very Aladdin and Jasmine-esque, where she kind of finds him interesting, and he's quirky, and he wins her over with his personality and all of that. And it's a nice little thing, but it felt very love at first sight, which is kind of a younger romance, a kid-like romance. But there was a good connection there. Here, it feels a lot more, oh, it's destiny. We met in the spirit world because I can go there in my dreams as a fox, and we met there, and you're the boy from my dreams, and that's why I broke off this betrothal with Han. Like, okay, so now there's not even like this sense of, ooh, they're hanging out together even though she's betrothed. Ooh, like, that was kind of a fun, again, kind of kid-like romance where it's sort of forbidden, and there's something fun about that. Here, there's not much fun. It's all, oh, isn't that sweet? He's the boy from her dreams. Oh my goodness. Oh, isn't that adorable? That's not really fun. It's just kind of cute. And I don't know. I guess some people might look at that and say that's the same thing. I don't. I see fun as there's an element of, again, childlike feeling about it. Here, there's nothing childlike about what they're saying. Even the way she's talking to him, it doesn't feel childlike. It feels a lot more spiritual and mature. And I know that's what this show is going for, but I do feel like, for me personally at least, these characters and this whole story, they work better in a more childlike, fun-loving environment. I don't think it works quite as well in this more serious, more mature tone. I don't know. It, like I said, it just changes the feeling and the idea of the story. It feels more mature than the original. Some people may like that. For me personally, it's not my thing, but I don't think it necessarily makes it worse. Even Han in this, like, it's a much more mature thing where, yes, he clearly likes Yue, and you could say that kind of makes him a rival for Sokka, but in reality, he's not. There's no rivalry there. There's no antagonistical feeling between him and Sokka. And I feel like that's, once again, takes some of the fun out of it, because you don't have that character that you just kind of love to hate, and you just can't wait for that moment whenever he goes up to take on Zhao, and Zhao just kind of flings him out. Basically the most nonchalant takedown in history. That's so much more fun when Han's a total douche, and you're just like, yeah, this is what you deserve because you're a douche and you didn't trust Sokka and listen to what Sokka's trying to say. You take that fun element out of it when you have Han basically be kind of a good guy and kind of this nice, yeah, she broke off this betrothal and it's her prerogative, so it's not like I can do anything about, like, he's less fun now. I don't hate him anymore. So I don't know what they're going to do with that, because Sokka, one of the reasons why he couldn't fight against the Fire Nation is because there was that bust up between him and Han, and that kind of led to Yue's father sort of stepping in and helping Sokka by getting him out of there, but still giving him something that is of worth to him by letting him guard his daughter. But here I'm like, well, there's no reason why Sokka should not be fighting, so how are they going to write him out of this fight now to where he'll be protecting Yue instead? I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that I'm uncertain about. Again, a lot of these changes did make this episode worse. There weren't really any changes that made it better for me. Definitely one of the weaker episodes. There was not a whole lot that I got excited to see more of. Like, even Karuk, we meet him in this first season and we learn about what happened with him and Ko right away. I mean, it's a change that, yeah, we learned some of this stuff early, but it doesn't really change much because we didn't really see much of Karuk in the original show anyway. But he's the one that gives Aang the information about you have to let go of your worldly attachments, which, again, is way too soon to be even discussing that. But yeah, it's a change that I don't really think affected much. I feel like that's kind of going to be how a lot of this show is going to go, especially in future seasons, unless they change up some stuff and change up how they're writing right now. I think a lot of it's going to be looking at the changes and going, how much of it made this episode better, how much of it made it worse, and then how much didn't really affect anything. How much of it was just kind of making changes that kept things sort of middling, where, oh, okay, you know, it's different, but it's not better or worse. For this one, Azula was worse, Katara and Pakku was worse, Aang is worse, and then Sokka and Yue and Karuk's changes are just, they're different. Not much affected as far as being better or worse. Well, that being said, on to the season finale. See you there. And now episode 8, Legends. Well, yep, there goes any excitement that I had for future seasons, because here's the thing. If you ever want one of your childhood favorite shows remade these days, don't. Just don't. Trust me, because they are going to butcher it. And you want to know one of the main ways they're going to do it? They're going to make sure that anything that was really well done, anything that did have a message of empowerment to it, they're going to make sure that they take that and they multiply it by 100 to the point where it's no longer subtle, it's unrealistic, and it just beats you over the head with the message. Katara, case in point. She is now a Mary Sue. She's a master, guys. She's a self-taught master. Don't you know? That's so much better than having somebody who learns from somebody else get so good that she becomes better than masters. No, she's just better than masters naturally. Because that's interesting, right? You don't want to see her learn. You don't want to see her train under somebody else, because that would mean she would have to learn from a man, and she doesn't need a man to teach her anything, guys. Even though Master Pakku has been doing this for years, he's been teaching so many people for years. Why watch him learn that, hey, why not train a woman in fighting? Why not train women in fighting? Why can't you do... No. Instead of seeing him learn that, we just see him eventually decide, okay, yeah, I'm done thinking that way, but Katara, you don't need my training, because that's how good she is. She's just that amazing. Because, sure, who wants to see our characters struggle and learn from other people? No, they're just naturally that good. She's even going to train Aang 100%. She is. Paku's not going to train Aang at all. It's all going to be Katara. So it's all her. She is that good. I'm sorry. If you're offended by my opinions on it, if you're sitting there going, oh, well, you're a man, so you're just... No. I love Katara from the original show. She was a badass. She was awesome. She was a great bender. She was easily one of the best waterbenders of all time. She still had to learn. She had to have somebody who was better at waterbending than her teach her. This is not the message that you think it is. This is a message of entitlement, a message of, hey, you don't need to learn from anybody who knows better than you. You could just do it all on your own. That's not the message you want to be teaching. I don't think they think that's what they're trying to show, but that's what they're showing. You don't need to learn from anybody else. Just do it all yourself because you're that good. No, you're not. I'm telling you right now, and this is not a put down. This is not a, hey, you're not that good. You suck. No, that's not the case. There are people who are going to be better than you. You have to be willing to learn from them. That's how you get better. That's how you get even better than they are sometimes. You have to learn from them. So to have a character that doesn't learn from anyone else and just does it all on their own, first of all, it's not an interesting character because it's not relatable. But also, it's not a good message. For a young person to basically go, I don't need training from anybody else, that's not a good message. And the whole, I'm sure they're thinking badass line where they changed Zuko and her interaction. He's like, you got a master. And she goes, yeah, you're looking at her. That's not the badass line they think it is. That is essentially just basically throwing any sort of interest in her character out the window. She's a young, spoiled, entitled little brat who thinks I don't need to learn from anybody. I learned myself. I did it myself. I'm the best there ever was. First of all, it would be a huge ego boost. Her head would get so freaking large in real life, but they're not going to do that because it's Katara. They're going to keep her humble and stuff. But how is she going to, normally, in real life, how would she be humble when she did it all herself? She wouldn't be. Easily the worst change of the season, and like I said, it takes any interest in Katara's character that I had and throws it out the window, which is sad because I would say from the first season, or from the original show, I would say Sokka was my favorite character. Close second was probably Zuko, and then close third was Katara. Those three, in that order, great characters. I loved all of them. They were all well done, well written. Now Katara's probably bottom of the barrel. Close bottom, it would be Han, because you took one of the biggest joke characters of the original series, a total douche, treats Sokka like trash because Sokka's trying to steal his girl that he's betrothed to, who doesn't really want to marry him anyway. But he antagonizes Sokka, acts like a total douche to him, and then gets his ass handed to him in 0.3 seconds by Zhao. Hilarious. Funny character. Now all of a sudden he's a totally nice guy. He doesn't care that Yue broke off the betrothal with him. He treats Sokka like a normal person. He acts like a good friend. And then he dies in this emotional, impactful, slow-mo scene. Who gives a crap? It's Han. Nobody cares about him. Why are we spending time on him? We spent so much time with him that we didn't have time for, say, Zuko kidnapping Aang and trying to get away with him and then nearly dying out in the snow, and then Aang saves him and brings him back. That's kind of a big scene to skip over. I don't know if that was their thinking when they had the little dialogue between Zuko and Aang in the hut and they had that connection there. I don't know if that was their thinking with that scene is, oh guys, now we have this scene here. But no, we have the scene where Zuko takes Aang while he's in meditation state, kidnaps him, runs away, and then they save him after he nearly freezes to death. That's kind of a big scene for future events whenever Zuko eventually starts to turn and change his mind. He also learns what Ozai was doing with Zhao and Azula, trying to use Zuko to basically grow Azula up. Because the thing is, having Azula and Zhao working together, it's fine. It does lessen Zhao's character overall. I do think the connection that Zuko and Zhao had, definitely not as strong in this show. Like, they didn't have, I don't think they had the Agni Kai with them. I don't know, maybe they did, and I've already forgotten it because it was that not interesting. There was also not the scene where Zhao figures out he's the blue spirit. He finds that out from Azula. So there wasn't really much of a connection there. So having this fight between them at the end, whenever Zuko finds him. Of course, there's still Zhao tried to kill him, so there is still that, but it doesn't feel quite as strong as it did in the original show. But Zhao telling him that, oh yeah, Ozai was using you to grow Azula. Why does Zuko find out about all of this? First of all, once again, it also makes Azula look so weak as a character, and her final scene in Amashu is just stupid, by the way. But it makes her weaker as a character, and now all of a sudden, if we continue and try to do some of the same stories, the story where Azula finds Zuko and Iroh and says, hey, come on back, guys. Ozai is so proud of you guys. Come on back in. That whole story, it's not going to make sense if they try to do it. Probably going to skip it. But yeah, there's no reason why they would trust Azula to begin with after Zuko found this out from Zhao. And also the way Zhao goes out, too, just very pathetic. Tries to attack Zuko from behind, which once again makes me think that they didn't do the Agni Kai between him and Zuko, because this felt very much borrowed from that scene with the Agni Kai, where Zuko turns his back after beating him and he tries to attack from behind and Iroh comes in, takes him out. But the fact that Iroh just kills him right there, I mean, not nearly as powerful as the scene where Aang shows up in koi state and starts to drag him down. Zuko goes to offer his help, and he, in his pride, says, no, I'd rather die than accept help from you. That was such a powerful scene in the original, and it showed just how stubborn, and also the power of Ozai and the banishment of Zuko. Like, it showed so much in that one little scene. Here, he tries to attack Zuko from behind. Iroh kills him. Easy story, guys. There's nothing interesting in that. It's just Iroh protects Zuko. That's it. And Zhao goes out like a little bitch. I don't get it. I don't understand why that's supposed to be interesting. Why that's supposed to be an interesting story. Moving on from that, though, I also feel like the addition of Kuruk's knife being the only thing that can kill a spirit. First of all, the fact that Kuruk tells Aang what Zhao is trying to do. It also adds this element of, well, now Aang knows what he's trying to do, so why wouldn't he do more to stop him from the beginning? But also the fact that he has to kill it with a knife now makes everybody else's actions look really dumb. When you could just kill the koi because they're mortal spirits. Also, the fact that they're only there for one night also feels weird. There's just a lot of changes that I'm like, I don't understand why we're making some of these changes, to be honest. The fact that only the knife can kill it, basically, you're making everybody that tries to stop him from doing that look really dumb. Because all you got to do is get the knife away. All Aang would have to do is just airbend the knife far away or to him or something. The fact that nobody tries to stop him as he's going to stab the knife in, also very dumb. When it was just he could kill it however, nobody was able to react whenever he just firebent and killed the fish. Because it's a quick, sudden thing that people didn't have time to react to. This is, he's reaching for the knife, grabs it, and has time to swing down on the fish that is in midair as Aang is airbending it. That is several motions, at least 2 or 3 seconds of time taken to do all of that, and everybody just goes, no! It's more goofy and silly than even the original show was. Like, that's what's ridiculous to me, is you're trying to maturify this show. I don't know if that's a word. I'm patenting it right now. But you're trying to take all these ideas and make them more mature and more grown up and more adult. And then you have this scene, which is so stupid and makes everybody else look so stupid. This scene belongs in a kid's show. So, I don't... ridiculous to me. But the one change that I will say, I don't think I like it as much as the original, but I understand what they're trying to do here. Because we haven't had the whole Aang accepting being the Avatar is his duty, because we haven't really had that as much of a character arc for this season, it's more so he's willing to accept the weight of it now. So again, kind of going into season 2 arc for him, but he's willing to sacrifice himself because of he failed at his duties of protecting the moon spirit, and so he's willing to sacrifice himself. This is not something from the original show. Like the idea that him merging with the ocean spirit, that would cost him his life, that's completely new, and it just adds a different type of character arc where, again, it's more so he's willing to accept responsibilities of his failures now. I don't know. It's just, it feels weird. We all know what's going to happen. We all know Yue is going to give her life up for the moon spirit. So this whole emotional thing where he's like, no, I'm willing to do this because I failed 100 years ago and all of this stuff, it adds an unnecessary weight of emotion that doesn't really connect. Because again, if you're watching this, you've probably watched the original show. you know Yue's going to sacrifice herself, the Moon Spirit's going to come back, and Aang's going to be fine. So having this sacrifice doesn't really add up. We don't feel it as the audience because we know it's not really a sacrifice. We know it's not going to be a permanent thing. So all you're really showing is, oh, Aang's willing to sacrifice himself. Cool. That's not really that interesting right now, to be honest. Outside of all that stuff, I mean, everything else is just sort of, we'll see what they're going to do with it. The fact that Zuko and Iroh are just sort of, we don't know what they're going to do with them next. We don't know if Zuko finding out about Azula and what Ozai's trying to do, we don't know if that's going to play into anything. Ozai himself is just, obviously he's showing what a good tactician he is. It still feels like this isn't the same kind of menacing Ozai that we're used to. Like, he does seem to have a bit of care about Zuko. Like, when the guy tells him that Zuko is at the North Pole, I feel like animated Ozai would have been like, and? But this Ozai is just like, well, if he's strong, he'll survive. But if not, well, we're always willing to sacrifice the weak. So it's like showing that if Zuko's too weak, he doesn't really care. But honestly, I don't think Ozai should care about either of his kids because I don't think he sees them as his children. He sees them as pawns. So in his mind, I lost Zuko. All right, well, there's a pawn off the board. I don't really think he would care that much. I don't think he'd even throw in the whole, if he's strong, he'd be like, all right, well, we'll see if he got out of there or not. It doesn't feel right to me. Also, just the fact that he used that to distract, the attack on the North Pole to distract and take Omashu. We'll see how that goes. It feels like they actually went in and destroyed the city and captured Bumi in the process. I know they've changed Bumi, but God, there was something so funny about the idea that they came in and he just basically said, all right, you got me, let's surrender. Because it felt like he knew something that nobody else did. And he did. We find out later. He did have an idea of what he wanted to do. This feels like, no, they went to battle. They went to war. He was willing to put his people in harm's way to try to stop them from overtaking the city. And that's not Bumi. So I'm just once again reminded that this Bumi is not the original Bumi, and he's so much worse in my mind because of that. Because the original Bumi was just such a great character to have. But all in all, looking back on this first season, it's not great. And I mean, once again, it has the benefit of the live action movie was just so bad that you couldn't be as bad as that movie. So there's going to be that bit of grace that people are going to give it because of that. I also think there are going to be people that are going to enjoy some of the changes that feel like they're empowerment moves, but in reality, they're not. They make the characters less interesting and they're not nearly as subtle. When the original show did have the same empowering messages for women, for kids, they had those empowering messages in that show. They just did them in more realistic ways. They did them in ways that truly showed the characters growing and becoming amazing, not they're already amazing. They don't need to become amazing. That message to me, it's not realistic for, I would say, probably 99% of people in the world. You're not going to do it all on your own, but it's also not a healthy message. Like, I know there's been a push for you can do this on your own type of thing to sort of build people up and make them feel powerful, which there is a place for, but the idea that you don't need anybody else is not a healthy message, because it basically, anybody who tries to step in and give you advice or help you out, or basically anybody who knows more than you who's trying to help you out, messages like this and shows like this and characters like Katara, it basically makes people think, hey, I don't need you. I don't need you to tell me what to do. I don't need you to tell me how to do this. And it pushes away people who are genuinely trying to help and trying to get you to be better than you are right now. And I get really frustrated with that, and I see it very often these days. And in a lot of fiction and a lot of these stories, I don't feel like it's a good message for people. But this brings to an end what has been a very frustrating season. I know I am a bit more critical, so some people may have just been able to turn off their brains, have a good time with it. Again, compare it to the movie, think, oh, this is so much better. The bending, the acting, the CGI, all of that is obviously so much better than the movie was. But when I look at it deeper, when I look at the characters, when I look at character arcs, when I look at a lot of the writing, a lot of the story decisions, it definitely feels like they took a lot of what made the original show great and they sort of just crunched it all together. They tried to do a lot of stuff in this first season that could have been saved for future seasons. They took a lot of messages from the original show and basically did the modern day, we got to beat you over the head with it because get it into your stupid head, this is our message. And it's not subtle and it's not interesting. So all in all, I gotta say this first season, kind of a disappointment for me. I would say there are some things that work a bit better, but on the whole of it, a lot of this show is not nearly as good as the original show was. And I mean, if you're going to do an adaptation, you're going to get compared to the original show. Some people might say, well, you can't do that. You have to look at it as its own thing, but that's not what you're doing. You're taking something that already existed and you're translating it into a new medium. You're going to be compared to what the original was. That's just the fact of it. And if you're not doing anything different with it that's better, people are going to ask, well, then what are you doing? And a lot of the changes that they made were not for the better. They were for the worse. They made things a lot more frustrating. They made characters a lot less interesting. And that's just unfortunately the fact of it for me. So, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these final 2 episodes, as well as this first season as a whole? Let me know. We could talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Avatar The Last Airbender reviews. Also, check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there, as well as a couple Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you all later. Peace out.